Abba, we give all praises and glory unto your name. We thank you so much for your love and your mercy which endures forever. All right, before we begin our class today, I'd like to say that I appreciate the gifts of my Isha, who has helped with the presentation itself. Thank the Most High for her hard work, day in and day out. When it comes to this particular study with the Creator's calendar, this is one of the areas that she spends quite some time in. It's not just a gift, but also as a woman. There are certain things that women naturally goes through that is in unison with the luminaries. So it's just natural for certain things to be understood much more than men would understand. I also want to give props, I would say, to my brother in the Virgin Islands, brother Felix and his wife. This particular study has many facets to it. Not just the general overview of the calendar, but there are lots of detailed work in there. And Brother Felix have done a wonderful job in spending the time asking the questions, getting the scriptures, looking at verses and chapters and little bits and pieces, and taking this to a much higher level. And if there has to be a class on this, he would be an ideal person to really bring this out, because of the amount of time he spent in this. Now let me tell you why. Because he was one of those who kept the 7th day of the Roman calendar as a Shabbat, Saturday as a Shabbat. And as a critic, because, you know, a good student wouldn't just jump into a teaching. They will actually take the time and examine things carefully. And because he wanted to be sure, when he learned, about the Creator's calendar, he came in as a skeptic. He came in doubtful. He came in with a lot of questions in his mind. And he was able to get those questions answered because he did what many people are afraid to do. You know what that is? Search the scriptures. That's it. The brother took his time and went through the book, and he overturned stuff, and he found stuff in there that just blew his, the whole tradition of churchianity out of the water. He realized that he was duped for so many years. And his question his statement is kind of a question. It's like, how come I couldn't see this all along? Why is it that I couldn't see this thing and it's right in front of me? So I give all praises to the Most High for the Felix's family who invest time to do the research, along with the help of Maisha, to have a greater understanding. So when people criticize and says, y'all are doing things wrong or this and that, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't done the research. Now, as we go through this study, it's my goal to finish this entire thing. This is part 1. We're going to go to part 2, part 3, and then we will go into the death and resurrection of Yeshua, the correct time. Okay? According to the Bible, by analyzing many texts. So, I may be rushing through some areas because it's not really necessary to really spend a whole lot of time on that, because you will see it again in other places, okay? The complete guide to the Creator's calendar. And as I said before, this is not truly a complete guide, and I'll tell you why. It's a general overview, because without if I had Brother Felix here with me, just do a tag team and have him come in and let him do some detail. That's when it becomes complete, when you have someone else to go and break down the day and the night, the morning and the evening, and all the details in between that. Okay? Now, I can do it, but I prefer someone like himself to really was done the extensive research to go through it. Let's go to our first slide. The original calendar, the luminaries. The Bible, right in the book of Genesis chapter 1, which we will examine, identifies the luminaries, the sun, moon, stars, as the guide in the heavens that we should be looking to in terms of understanding time. Okay? I did a class before where I used the book of Enoch and other places and showed that when the Most High placed the luminaries on the time that he did, time did not start when the sun started. Okay? Time did not start when the moon started, when the moon was put out in existence, right? So time was already there. Just like when a watchmaker designs a clock. Time doesn't start when he completes that clock. He sets the clock according to the time that already exists. Is that clear? You all understand that? Okay. As long as we understand that, it eliminates a whole lot of confusion. Because the Most High he's the clock, he's the time. And so he just simply set his clocks and put them out there, and they start to run from the point that he wanted it to run from. Okay? Let's go to our next slide. The true calendar was established at creation. At creation. So the book of Genesis chapter 1 verses 14 to 18 gives us that understanding. And this is just the basics to help us to compare who are we truly serving. Are we serving the creator of the universe and following his timeline? Or are we going to allow ourselves to be duped by the nations? Okay, because every nation originally had their own way of calculating time. Right? Whether it's watching the tides or looking at the stars, moon and sun, or looking at something else, or whatever it is. They had their own systems. When we read the book of Daniel, and we see the nations that conquered basically the known world, every power that conquered the known world established a type of system over these nations so that they can interact and have commerce and whatnot. Because if they have, let's say for example, if Babylon did all their work at night because they have the infrastructure, lights and everything to do work at night, and another nation doesn't have lights and infrastructure in that sense, you're going to have a clash, problems, right? So when the goods and services have to be flowing back and forth, it will have problems. So every country that was under the rule of Babylon had to come into, right, the system of Babylon. Now Rome, Greece did the same thing, right? So this is where we are today, where everyone around the world is upgrading to fit the European or the United States system. Okay, the laws, everything is formed based on them, because they're the ones that's the power, and because they control everything, and I want to be in compliance, I got to make sure my laws is up to standard. So let's read Genesis chapter 1 verses 14 to 18.
And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and years."
So the Most High had used the lights in the firmament And the purpose of that was to divide the day from the night. So when people say that there's 24 hours in a day, for example, that's wrong. Okay? The Most High already said from the beginning that there was a division. He says, let them be for signs. It's not just for lights, but they are for signs. And we'll break that down as we go further. Signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. That's the calendar. Right here in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 14, tells us what it's there for. Because signs, something you can see, seasons, dealing with the spring, summer, fall, and winter, and days, and for years. That's the regulation of time. Is that correct?
Right.
All right. Were you saying something, asking a question?
I was going to make a comment on the word day. The word day has two meanings to it. Day meaning the entire, complete 24, and day meaning the light part of it. For example, the word man could mean mankind overall, and then man means male.
Right. The biblical definition of a day is not the one that you described with 24 hours. That's the difference. That is the modern view, which is correct. That is a modern view. If we want to talk modern language, we would say yes, that's the definition. But we cannot use the modern definitions to interpret the scripture, because that's where we're going to have problems. Right?
Right.
Okay, let's go to our next slide. The Most High have set the luminaries in a perfect place where no man can change or alter. So even though we have astronauts and cosmonauts and all the scientists that are trying to achieve interstellar communications, interstellar travel, and all types of stuff, they cannot change the moon, sun, and stars, the firmament that the Most High used for the days, for the years, and seasons. They cannot change it. What they can do is they can set up educational material, academic material, to make us believe otherwise, to teach our children that, for example, that homosexuality is love, right? That the sun is not really there for that reason. The sun is just some nuclear bomb that didn't explode, a nuclear reactor. They can change the meaning in their curriculum, right? But they cannot change the Most High's way at all. Let's see what the book of Daniel, chapter 27, verses 25 says.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time.
So when it says think to change times and laws, he's fooling himself. It's just an illusion, it's just a mirage. He is fooling himself. The rest of the world will be deceived, but the elect of the Most High will not be deceived at all. Okay? So let's go to our next slide. The true calendar was established at creation, verses 15. Let's read on. Genesis 1 and 15.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Yah made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
So the sun, which is the greater light, was not designed to rule night. See, the Bible plainly identifies two separate things happening. Day versus night. They're not one and the same. Okay? So the light of the sun is to rule, has power. It's given instructions to operate. Okay? And also the lesser light is used to rule the night. Let's continue on.
I want to say something before you go to the stars area. In verse 16, you go back, where he said he made the stars also. The word he made is in italics. So they add that in there. It's supposed to be read, he made the lesser light to rule the night and the stars also. So the fact that they put he made is not supposed to be in that sentence.
Okay, so it actually projects the idea
Right.
that he formed these things at that particular time, when everything was already put before. He says, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth.
But it also gives the illusion that the stars are not used to, to rule the night. But in the Psalms, you will see later on that it's mentioned different.
All right, sounds good. Let's continue on. Verse 17.
And Yah set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Yah saw that it was good.
So we can see the purpose of it is not just for light, but it has ordinances into it. Ordinances, order, structure, rule. When someone is ruling over something, they are the ones dictating the order, the way things should operate. The Most High has placed that within the sun, and that's why we have a certain amount of order. Right? We see the plants follow the sun. It changes, it shifts to get as much rays. It changes again and follows the sun. Whatever direction, you could put a rock on top of a seedling. It will find its way around that rock and follow the warmth and the heat and face the sun. Alright? You're familiar with the sunflowers. How it's called sunflower, not because of this big flower, but it also shifts and changes, faces the sun, right? So the Most High says it was good. But mankind said, no. We're going to come up with a better solution. Right? So the Most High has placed these things where no man can reach up to, like you're changing bulbs, and says, I'm going to switch that out, and I'm going to put something else. Right? So if I live in Japan, the same rules that apply over there applies over here in America. No matter where we are in the world, all we have to do is look up, and that's our calendar. Just look up, right? I don't have to speak the same language. I don't have to go to the same schools, right? Just look up. I don't have to be that smart, right?
Right.
And the Most High has given that simple method of understanding. He didn't say in the beginning, he made everything good, and then he gave Adam a college requirement. Okay? Or tell Adam, you go make your own time, or whatever it is. So now let's look at the breakdown from the Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew definition behind the words that we just read. The luminaries are defined. So the Bible says, let them be for signs. The Hebrew is oath, from the H225 in the sense of appearing. It simply means for signs, a signal. A signal, literally or figuratively, as a flag, a beacon, a monument, omen, prodigy, evidence, etc., etc., etc. Right? So when it says for a sign, common sense will let us know. Signs are there for a reason. It's to tell us something. Direction. Let me know where to go. What I need to stop. Flags. In the military, flags are used as a sign to know to go forward or to halt. Okay? To make your attack or withdraw. There's always, basically all militaries, there's a man on the field with a flag, right? And he travels on a horse or whatever it is, or even on the field, and he would wave the flag to let people know to attack. Is that correct? So the Hebrew is telling us that he made them as a signal or something we should pay close attention to. Can we get the same thing from a calendar? When you look at the calendar, does it tell you anything? No, it doesn't. Okay? Let's continue on. Also, the definition for seasons. Hebrew 4150, Moed. There's a root to that word, which is the H3259. We will look at that in a little bit. Properly, it says an appointment, or it's a fixed time. An appointment or a fixed time, season, a festival, right? Conventionally, a year by implication. An assembly, as convened for a definite purpose. So, when we look at this, brothers and sisters, we can see that when it says for seasons, that they're used for seasons, the definition behind it goes a little bit further to help us to understand it's a time for convocation. It's a time for gathering. Whether you're gathering your crops in, or if you're gathering yourselves as a meeting place, or an appointed place to converse, right? To speak, to talk to each other, to communicate with the Most High, right? It's that appointed time. It also says in here, assembly, congregation, solemn feast. So wait a minute. The Bible is telling me that I am to use the luminaries to understand when we are to congregate as an assembly, as a congregation, for a feast, for the appointed time, for seasons, even for the synagogue, which is a Greek word.
Yes.
Right? Is that what the Bible is telling me? Yes. The Bible is telling me that we utilize these things so we can understand the coming together of our peoples. That's very important, okay? Let's go to our next slide. 4 seasons. Okay, so back up just a little bit. 1 second. So we saw the root word for moed is the Strong's Hebrew 3259, and that means yad. Okay, so let's continue. Ya'ad. So ya'ad, a primitive root, means to fix upon by agreement or appointment. By implication, to what?
Meet.
To meet. At a stated time, to summon to trial, to direct in a certain quarter or position. To what? Engage for marriage. Let me pause there for a minute. In the Hebrew culture, the appointed times that we as Israelites meet is a rehearsal, a mikveh, a rehearsal, as a wedding rehearsal, a marriage rehearsal. We are preparing ourselves, going through the motion in order for us to prepare ourselves for our future husband. Okay? So when we look at this from the Hebraic perspective, it's so important for us to understand why it is necessary for us to keep the feast at the appointed times, not the calendars that men have set up, because those calendars were designed for the convenience of commerce, of the Roman Empire commerce, okay? Trade. And if you don't follow that, it will hurt your pocketbook. You're not going to be able to eat, and then, therefore you're going to be have problems, right? Okay. So, it says here, assemble, and it says what?
Betrothed.
Betrothed. That's engagement, right? Engagement, like an engagement party. Okay? So that's the root for seasons. Let's continue on. So we're looking at the Paleo Hebrew, that's the ancient Hebrew, behind the word seasons. And it gives us 2 ancient ways of writing, which is the ayin, which is a symbol of the eye, and also the dalet, which is a symbol of the door. Now, this doesn't look like, it looks like a slice of pizza, but it's a tent door. You got that, right? Because the tent door opens how? In a triangular way, right? That's why it's shaped like that. Okay? Great, I'm glad you got that. Because most people look at that and says, how is that a door? You know why? Because we're trying to utilize our modern Roman Grecian mindset and trying to understand the past, and that's where the confusion is. Okay? Alright. So it says, can you read for me?
action, adorn, meet, concrete, trapping, abstract, witness, appointment, pictograph. The pictograph, an eye, is a picture of the eye. The lamed is a picture of the door. Combined,
the dalet.
Sorry, is a picture of the door. Combine these mean see the door. Definition: as coming to a tent of meeting and entering in, a place, time, or event that is repeated again and again.
So it is basically making the connection that when I come to the door to go into the house, there's an appointment that I'm trying to keep. It's an appointed time. So they use these symbols here to make that clear, okay? All right, we got that?
Yeah.
Relationship to root. An event or person's testimony recounting another event or person. The King James translations, witnesses. Strong's Hebrews H5707. So, an event or a person's testimony recounting something that's repeated again and again. So when we utilize the heavenly bodies, this is something that goes through cycles. We call repetition cycles, right? Earth cycles or lunar cycles or whatever, cycles, something that's repeated over and over. Let's go to the next slide.
Was in a circle.
Like one has cycle, one has a cycle.
That's right. Now, I'm glad you bring that up because when I mentioned that women are the best, are in the greater position of understanding the luminaries because they also have a cycle within themselves. And their cycle that they go through in their bodies is for life. It's all about birth.
Yes.
It's not for death. So when the system is saying to the woman, you need to abort your children, it's going against the cycle that's built within their system of life, yes.
Okay, the same way how the moon controls the water and stuff on the earth, it does the same thing within our body, the same way too.
You may have to do this. That's right. What he was saying, if you didn't hear, is the same way that the moon controls the tides with the water. That's why a woman have to have a certain amount of water within her body. Those women who go through the gym and exercise and burn off all the fats, they're destroying the cycle of their body. You need to have a certain amount of fat on your body. I'm not saying to be overweight, but you need to have, based on your height and your age, a certain amount so your body can have the proper balance. Okay? Alright, so that's a clock that's built in. Now let's look at the Hebrew definition for days. Yom. That's what it is, yom. From an unused root meaning to be hot, a day as the warm hours. Whether literally from sunrise to what?
Sunset.
So when we think along the Gentile mindset saying 24 hours in a day, that's incorrect. Because there's no heat, there's no warmth from the light of the sun. So you have to scratch off the night part as being day. Day is day, night is night. It's two separate things. Okay? So once again, as the warm hours, whether literally from sunrise to sunset, or from one sunset to the next. This is just the more modern definition here. But let's focus upon this, what the Bible is saying, from sunrise to sunset, from the morning until the sun goes down. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we want to get from that. Years. Shana. The first form being in plural only, the second form being feminine. From H8138, a year as a revolution of time. Revolution of time. So you have all these little times in between, then you have this whole cycle. Alright? Okay. Now, as we go through this, we will recognize something. There's three things that the Most High said for us to utilize. The sun, the moon, and the stars. Right? 3. It's not a coincidence when we have our clocks or watches. There are 3 things that helps to determine the time. What is that?
Hour.
The hour, speaking of Mike.
Hour hand.
Uh-huh.
Second hand.
the second hand, and the minute hand. See? So there we have a very basic understanding. It's right on our clocks. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. So let's look at the luminaries. We're going to cover a general view of the luminaries. Let's start with the sun. The first luminary. The sun's function. We can see that the sun rises and the sun sets. Seems that way, huh? Just basic stuff. Sunrise and sets. That's the order in which it moves. It rises and it sets. Let's get the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verses 5.
The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he arose.
Once again, it rises, and the sun goes down, and hasteth to his place where he rose. So, this in itself will tell us it's connected to the day, or a day. When the sun has completed its job, the rising and the set, the day is over. That's it. Is that clear?
Yes.
The day is over.
Yes.
Don't tell me that this is the night part is the day. It's two different things. Let's get Psalms 19.
Right.
Psalms, the book of Psalms, chapter 19. And we're going to read from verses 1 to 6. Go ahead and read.
It says, the heavens declare the glory of God.
The who?
The glory of Yah.
Who
The
declares it?
heavens declare the glory of Yah.
Uh-huh.
And the firmament sheweth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech.
Uh-huh.
And night unto night showeth knowledge.
Two separate things. Right here in the text. Two separate things. Day is a day and the night is a night. Read.
There is no speech, no language, where their voice is not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world.
So no matter where we are, everyone, if you say hot sun, or in your whatever language, once you point, everyone can say, yeah, I know the sun. Everyone knows the sun. And if you're blind, you can feel the sun. Right? You can feel the warmth of the sun. So there's no language barrier when it comes to understanding how the sun rises and the sun sets. There's no confusion. Okay,
That's what it is.
let's continue on. In them
have he set a tabernacle for the sun.
So the sun has a place, a home to go to. Okay? That's what it's saying, read.
Which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race.
So the chamber, the secret place, he comes out and he goes right back in. At an appointed time, he goes out, he comes back in. Okay? Read.
His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it. And there is nothing hid from the heat thereof.
So wherever the heat goes, or the light goes, there will be warmth and there will be life. Right? Let's go to our next slide. The sun gives the number of hours in what?
In the day.
In the day. Let's get the book of John 11 and verses 9. The book of John 11 and verses 9.
Yeshua answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world.
Did Yeshua say, aren't they 24 hours in the day?
No.
Did he say that?
No.
He didn't say that, right? So, the book of John chapter 1 says the world was made by him. Everything was made by him. So if he created everything, why are we going in the opposite direction? Saying, well, there are 24 hours in the day. He said there are 12 hours in the day, not 24, right? So the sun gives us the number of hours in the day. And as you can see this picture here, the shadows helps us to understand the time and so forth. Is that correct? Very, very basic. You stick a piece of wood or stick or whatever in the ground and let the sun do its thing, and we can pretty much mark the spot, and the next day we find the same thing repeated, and the next day after that, and the day after that, and so forth. It's repeated over and over and over and over, right? So you know when it's the middle of the day, or the beginning of the day or the evening, whatever. This is what the sun does, okay? That's the job of the sun. If midday is the middle of the day, then it divides 12 hours of daylight in half. 6 hours in the morning and 6 hours in the evening. So, this is the noon, the middle of the day. You got 6 hours, right, in the morning, and then you got 6 hours in the evening, right? So daylight is divided into half. From 0 to 6, from 6 to 12 hours in the day. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. All right. Let's go to the next slide. If midnight is the middle of the night, then it divides 4 watches. Did it say hours?
No.
Because hours is connected to who?
Day.
The day, and to who controls the day?
Sun.
The sun.
The sun. So if there's no sun to give us the hours, we cannot use hours for the night. You understand that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the Bible speaks of it in this fashion. It says there are 4 watches. The first watch is right here, from sunset to the first quarter of the night. From sunset to the first quarter of the night. This little part right here is the first watch. The second watch is from the second quarter to midnight. From right here to midnight. So you got first watch, then you got the second watch over to midnight. Let's continue on. The third watch from midnight, right over here, to right over here, right to the third quarter. The fourth watch from the third quarter to the end where the sun begins to rise again. Do we see that?
Yeah.
All these watches, it's called watches. Now there's a reason for it. There's a reason for the word watch that's in there, okay? Let's go to the next slide. Go back for a second. Okay. So a watch, basically, when we look at a guard, someone who goes out at night and he does the security work, he looks, he observes, he got to stay awake, and he has to watch and do his patrol and to see, make sure everything is safe or whatever the case may be. And that is where the term watch really comes, like a watchman. Okay? And so that term has been utilized and applied to a device that we used today called a what? A watch. Okay? All right, let's go forward. The heat of the sun. Since the sun rules the day, you can only get hours in the day, which is the light. Okay? Ancient Hebrews used a sundial to determine the hours of the day. The what? The hours of the day. The sun does not rule the night, so you cannot get hours of the night, just watches. The watches are based on the moon and the movement of the stars. The watches are based on the moon and the movement of the stars. Now, many of our people, they don't know anything about the stars at all. Okay? We have moved away from that type of society. However, sailors, ship captains, people who fly planes and whatnot, but mostly those that deal with ships, they have to notice. Because if the navigational system goes down, the GPS fails, they have to be able to look at the stars and use the ancient way of charting, okay, to navigate. We have 2 Kings chapter 20, verses 8 to 11, gives us a glimpse into the ancient Hebrew culture, that they had a means of measuring the hours, also known as degrees. If you want to pull it up on the screen, you can. 2 Kings 20, 2 Kings 20, verses 8 to verses 11.
And Hezekiah said unto Isaiah,
So Hezekiah is the king of Israel. Go ahead.
What shall be the sign that the Lord will heal me, and that I shall go up into the house of the Lord the third day.
Healing and what day?
The third day.
Healing and the third day. Coming back to life. Okay? Because
Resurrection.
sickness brings you to death, and healing brings you to resurrection, life. 3 days. Read.
And Isaiah said, This sign shalt thou have of the Lord, that the Lord will do the thing that he hath spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 degrees, or go back 10 degrees?
Degrees. Shadow. Go forward. So, what is he utilizing to see a shadow?
The sun.
The sun.
The sun.
In other words, there was a sundial that he had. He had a system of a clock that he could, a device that he could look and see the time going back or forward or whatever it is. Read it again.
And Isaiah said, This sign shalt thou have of the Lord, that the Lord will do the thing that he hath spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 degrees, or go back 10 degrees?
What do you want? Go forward or backward? Read.
And Hezekiah answered, It is a light thing for the shadow to go down 10 degrees.
It's easy for it to go forward, right?
Nay, but let the shadow return backward 10 degrees. And Isaiah the prophet cried unto the Lord, and he brought the shadows 10 degrees backward, by which it had gone down in the dial of Ahaz.
The dial. What is the dial?
Sundial.
Sundial. See? So that gives us a little glimpse that our people were not dummies. There was no dumb dog in Israel. Let's continue on. Heat of the sun. The book of Psalms, chapter 136. We're going to read verses 8 and verses 9. Go ahead and read.
The sun to rule by day, for his mercy endureth forever. The moon and stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever.
Now, as it says in the title, the heat, we're looking at the function of luminaries. Not just for timekeeping, but also we see it gives off heat. Now, heat is also known as what? Energy. Energy. And we need energy to do what? To work, to operate, to have movement. Even a reptile understands this. When it's cold, they go into a sleep, hibernation. But as soon as the energy of the sun, the warmth of the light hits them, they're emanated. They start to move, right? Okay. So the Bible is telling us that the sun, the heat of the sun, happens during the day, which allows us to have the energy to work and to operate. And work should naturally be done in the day, not the night.
Right.
The system that we have right now is trying to squeeze the life out of people. It forces people to go out and do things that is not natural. It's against nature. For you to stay up all night and study, stay up all night and work, all of those things causes the brain. The brain itself at some point starts to wane down. It needs to rebuild. And it's like, the cell phone companies will tell you, don't use your phone and charge at the same time. What happens to the battery?
Kills it faster.
Kills it faster, right? So our bodies are designed at nighttime to recharge, but we're using it while it's trying to recharge at the same time. I know, because I've been doing it for too long, and I need to change that also. It burns you out. Okay, it burns you out. Okay, let's get Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 13 and verses 6. So the moon doesn't give us that function of the heat, okay, which allows us to function throughout the day. Matthew 13 and verses 6. Can you read that, please?
And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away.
All right, once again, the heat of the sun. Now let's go to Revelation 7 and verses 16.
They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat.
That's when the Father is here on this earth, There will be no need for the sun to operate when he is there. But when the Messiah is here, under his rulership, the sun will still be around doing its job. Okay? So these are two different eras, two different kingdoms. You have the Messiah's job, then you have the Father's job. Let's go to our next slide. Are all days alike? Now, I put this chart up here because I wanted us to visualize. I want us to visualize that when it comes to the counting of a day, every day looks the same. We don't have a yellow day, like today's yellow, then tomorrow it turns red, and the day after that it turns green, the light turns, what color is this, purple? Purple. And then it turns blue on the 5th day, and the 6th day it turns brown, and it turns a kind of a aqua, whatever color that is, greenish color, right? And then it repeats itself again by turning back yellow and so forth. Because if we were able to see, if the Most High had set color for us to know the days of the week, right, it wouldn't be difficult for us. It'd be very easy. So we don't have this system. We don't have every day, changing colors that we can say, oh, okay, because common sense would tell us after a while, it'll be like, okay, I figured it out. Any child, over a little period of time, will recognize that this is blue day.
This is a pattern.
Because there's a pattern, right? This is blue day and stuff like that. But that's not the case. The Most High didn't set things that way for us to know what day is day number 1, what day is day number 2, 3, 4, and so forth, right? Now, in certain cultures, they probably would have started day number 1 on the purple and come back, repeat the 7th cycle, and end over here. Maybe the Japanese would have started on the brown day and circle around until they come back. But they will have a consistent, something to really follow, okay? So what do we utilize to know the times and so forth? All of that we will learn, okay? Now the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus, chapter 33, verses 7 to verses 8. Sirach, Ecclesiasticus, chapter 33 in Apocrypha, verses 7 to verses 9 gives us an understanding, because all days look the same. I can't tell tomorrow if tomorrow is a feast day or not, because it's sunny the same way. If it's raining, but it's all the same day, right? Let's see what the Bible says.
Not if you're using the sun alone, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Right, if you're using the sun by itself. Thank you.
Right. Why doeth one day excel another?
So it's asking a question based on observation. Why does one day excel the other? Why does it have more power or, than the other day? Read.
When all the light of every day in the year is of the sun.
Every day, the light is hitting it, it's of the same sun. There's no change. It's of the sun. So when we're dealing with the sun, we don't see yellow, brown, green, something that shows us change. The only thing the sun allows us to see is the shadows being cast, so we can navigate the hours within that day of sunlight, right? But as far as day number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, the sun doesn't allow us that. Do you understand that? Okay? Continue on.
By the knowledge of the Lord, they were distinguished.
So the Most High has made a way that we can tell one day, today, from tomorrow. He has designed a system that we can differentiate between one and the other. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
And he altered seasons and feasts.
Now this word altered, does the sun alter?
No.
The sun stays one way all the time. Heat and light. Heat and light. But the moon, now that's the difference. The moon changes. So when you read this text, it doesn't say the moon, but the moon is written right into the text. Over here in verses 7 it says the sun. When you come down to verses 8, it tells us the moon right here. He altered, because the moon is the only thing that alters. It changes. Do you understand that? Okay? Now, we don't have the ability to look directly at the sun to see if the sun is turning a little bit reddish, orange, or yellowish, or whitish. We'll get blind. Okay? We don't have the filter system to see. Maybe there's a fluctuation of flares. Maybe today the flare goes this side, and tomorrow the flare goes that side. We don't have that capability, and that doesn't exist. Right? It's like turning on your stove and watching the flame to see if there's a pattern. That maybe the flame is going to be this way 2 seconds, and then it's going to be this way over here 3 seconds, and then we see a pattern of the flames. We can't see that with the sun. But the moon captures the light of the sun, and because the moon alters, it helps us to navigate time. Is that understood? All right. Verses 9, can you read?
Some of them have he made high days and hallowed them, and some of them have he made ordinary days.
So the Most High have made certain days holy days, or high days, days that are more important than the others. And the other days are just regular days. You can do your work and do whatever it is. So the moon comes into picture to let us know the difference between one day and the other day. The moon helps us to know the difference between one day or the other. So if you are cast away, like, what's that guy who played in that movie, Cast Away? Tom Hanks, or Gilligan. You're shipwrecked on an island somewhere. All you have is your little half of drawers on you, and your coconuts. How do you determine what day? Because you were at a beach, you woke up, you don't know how long you was on the beach for.
Laid out.
You probably was unconscious for a whole 2 weeks. The crabs were picking at you. Right? And you awaken and you're trying to figure out, well, where am I? What day of the week it is? Where am I? You could be unconscious for even 3 hours, and in your mind, not even know what time of day it is. Okay? So, if you have the system of the Most High, you will be able to tell right away what's happening, to help us to understand, to distinguish one day from the other. Amen?
Amen.
All right. So every day looks the same, but he has given us a way to distinguish one from the other. And Sirach chapter 33, verses 7 to verses 9 helps us to get that understanding. Let's go to our next slide. Okay, so just a quick overview of sun worship in brief, because there are many places that celebrate the sun and they worship. We don't do that. We don't regard the sun as anything to worship. The sun is a tool that the Most High set up in the luminaries in the sky, in the heavens, that we can be able to distinguish our times and stuff like that. So Wikipedia helps us to gain some better understanding of the sun worship in history. All right, you can see the Pope over here, the Pope before this one. What's his Ratzinger? And he has, this is called a monstrous, and that's a sun symbol. They put the wafer in there that's supposed to represent the body of Christ in here. And Christ now is elevated as the sun. So this is sun worship. Then you have these Illuminati symbols on the royalty and things like that. Okay? So let's go to our slide. Can you read for me, please? Religious history. Religious history.
Religious history. In ancient Roman culture, Sunday was the day of the sun god. It was adopted as the Shabbat day by Christians who did not have a Jewish background. The symbol of light was a pagan device adopted by Christians.
Read it again.
The symbol of light,
which is the sun,
was a pagan device adopted by Christians. and perhaps the most important one that did not come from Jewish traditions.
Now, we know the word Jewish is not correct, but we understand what Wikipedia is trying to say, right? Hebrew traditions. Go ahead.
In paganism, the sun was a source of life, giving warmth and illumination to mankind.
Read.
It was the center of a popular cult among Romans.
So the Romans had the sun as a form of worship. Okay? Continue on.
Who would stand at dawn to catch the first rays of sunshine as they prayed.
As they did what?
As they prayed.
So the Romans had a practice of coming before the sun at the rising of the sun. They would pray at that particular time. Read.
The celebration of the winter solstice was which influenced Christmas, was part of the Roman cult of the unconquered sun, or Sol Invictus. Invictus. Christian churches were built with an orientation so that the congregation faced towards the sunrise in the east.
Let me read it again. Christian churches were built with an orientation. They were designed, the buildings were designed in such a way to face the east. So when the sun rose early in the morning, as you see over here, early in the morning at dawn, it facing the rise of the sun. Why? That's a pagan practice. So when you look at some of these church doors, they have like a half, some of them have a full circle, that's the sun, and some of them have a half circle, that's the rise of the sun. So if anyone tells you, hey, let's get together early in the morning when the sun is rising and face the east so we can pray, you need to go as far away from them as possible. That's heathenism. That's pagan practice, yes.
I was going to mention what you just mentioned, the circles that they have in these churches set up in front of the pulpit is, that's where the sun comes down and shines on the altar.
That's right.
So it's supposed to illuminate the person teaching or preaching.
That's right. So the person that is speaking at the pulpit, that light hits them and they become as a god. Now, do you know that yoga, if you look at the picture up on the screen over here, yoga is a form of sun worship? Every position of yoga, see this is the standard position, how you start off. You give the praise, and then you stretch backwards, and then you bow all the way down, and you prostrate yourself in these different degrees. You look it up. Yoga is an Asian practice of sun worship. They took the early morning practices, the practice that they had of bowing a certain way, and they made that into an exercise or a thing of meditation, a thing of renewing your strength, all of these things are borrowed from paganism. You all see that? Okay? All right.
I would like to read something for you in the book of Enoch.
The book of Enoch? Okay.
Concerning what you just read. Okay, in the book of Enoch, and I would suggest that everyone listening to read the chapter on the astronomy, and you can get a better understanding. It also talked about how the sinners shall change the order, and they will not keep the Lord's feast at the appointed time. So I just want to read just a couple of verses where it says that, and the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from sinners.
What chapter are you on?
I'm sorry, it's chapter 80, and I'm reading verse 7. So it says that the whole order of the stars will be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods. And evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them so as to destroy all.
Okay, so the book of Enoch prophesied that mankind will eventually lose their way and worship the luminaries as gods.
Yes.
And that's what we find today. Sun worship, moon worship, star worship, astrology, you name it. All these different things are just wrong in the eyes of the Most High. Evil. Okay? So now let's look at the moon. The luminaries, the moon. Okay? Let's look at that moon. Let's go to our next slide. When does a new moon begin? When does a new moon begin? This is important. So this will help us to understand how to know what we do. Okay? The Hebrew month begins with the first visible light of the moon in the western sky. And that depends on your location. Approximately 15 to 20 minutes after the sun has set. So when the sun sets, you should be able to see that little slither of light about standing up in the sky for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then it disappears. It disappears that first time, okay? Depending on the seasons or time of the day, then the following day will be the new moon or the worship day. We're not worshiping the moon. We're worshiping the creator of the moon. Okay? So in other words, the moon gives us enough light, not a whole bright light, but just a slither. Now, remember we said the moon is in connection with the woman's cycle in that sense, right? Okay. So when the moon shows a little bit of light, light is a symbol of something being born. Okay? So imagine a child that is coming out of the womb. You don't see the whole body of that child. But you can see, the midwife can see just the what?
Crown.
The crown. Just the crown. A little bit of light. And that light gives you hope to know that a child is about to be born. But then the head slips back into the womb. Not for too long. It's just part of the process. So now you see the child is about to come, but he or she is not coming all the way just yet. It slips back in. Okay? Then after a little while, comes out again, and this time he stays, coming out until you get a whole body of that child. That's a complete cycle, okay? So it's the same thing with the moon. We get a little bit of light. It's only for a short time. Disappears. It's dark in the sky again. And this tells us that the next day, the next time the moon comes around, it'll be, that next day is the day number what? Day number one. Day number one, okay?
Yeah, a new month has begun.
A new month has begun. So let's look at this diagram. You got the north, you got the south, you got the east, and you got the west. This is the horizon right here. Horizon. So you look towards the west, and you see the sun has set. You see it's going down, right? Over here, it's going down. Then you can see the moon has risen. The light, just a little slither of light has been shown, and you look and you can see it, and then the moon will just disappear. Not going to see it anymore, okay? All right. Is that clear? Let's go to our next slide.
It just like gives you an announcement.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, please note that at this time, the moon will only be visible for approximately 10 minutes and then it disappears. We talked about that. If for some reason you were unable to see it due to cloudy skies, then on the following night, if the weather is favorable, it will appear in the western sky just before the sun sets. It will appear in the western sky just before the sun sets. All right? All right, let's continue on. If it appears after the sun sets on that night, then the following day will be the new moon worship day. If it appears after the sun sets on that night, then the following day will be the new moon worship day. However, if it does appear before sunset, then that day was indeed the new moon day. Is that clear? Do I need to repeat anything? Okay. Let me read it again. If it does appear before the sunset, then that day was indeed. So if the sun is up and you see it there, it says the day before was already day number one. I'm on day, number two, right? Okay. So You can see the slither of light. This little bit of light lets us know that it's a new moon. Let's go to the next slide. First quarter moon. After the sighting of the new moon, which is called a month, the moon will appear earlier and earlier each day for 6 days. It can be seen in the day if the weather is favorable in the early evening hours. Right? Is that correct? Okay. So we can see this picture on the screen with the new moon with a little bit of light around it. Then it goes through the first quarter. The first quarter over here. Then it goes through waxing, given, full moon. And each of these falls upon the set apart times, okay? They all fall upon the set apart times, and we'll look at that shortly. Okay? On the sixth night, which is the 7th of the month, the sixth night, which is the 7th of the month, it will be in the middle of the sky when the sun has set. It will be in the middle of the sky when the sun has set. Then the following day will be the first Shabbat, which is the 8th of the month. It will continue moving towards the east for 6 more days, which will be the 14th of the month. So I have a little diagram here to help us to understand that. So you got the first day of the month, which is right over here. At the end of the previous month, the conjunction phase begins. When the new moon is sighted, then the next day is the first day of the month. So when this is sighted, the next day is the first day of the month, right? Then you count your days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and over here, this 8th day is a Shabbat, right here. Because this day is this day is considered to be the new moon day or the worship day. This day is not a day where you work for other people. It's a day that you can do things around your home, but it's a worship day. It's a time when everyone congregates together and fellowships and things like that, right? But then you have 6 working days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 working days. And the 7th day is the Shabbat. So after the 6 days have passed, and we will look at this again, then the 7th day is the Shabbat. Okay? And we'll also use a story within the book of Joshua to help us to understand this as we go forward. Because a lot of people will say, well, that don't make any sense. What are you talking about? How's the 8th day, the Shabbat? Because they don't factor in that the first day that the Most High set up was a crowning day. It's a declaration. After that, then you start working for 6 days, and after your 6 days of work, then you rest. They never factor this in, the understanding. And therefore, when they read the book of Joshua, with the destruction of the city of Jericho, they get lost. Because the question is, how was Joshua able to go around the city for 6 days and without breaking, and then the 7th day without breaking the Shabbat? How was he able to spoil the city and take all those things out of the city? Fire and gold and different, burn it with fire, take the gold, wealth, and kill people and clean themselves up, even the priests, and be ready for Shabbat? That's the question. If you follow this right here, you'll see how they're able to do that and still keep the Shabbat. Okay? All right. Ezekiel chapter 46 and verses 1. Read.
Thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days.
Why would it be shut for 6 working days? Go ahead.
But on the Shabbat it shall be open.
So the gate for the inner court, that's the temple. At this time it's the Beit Mikdash. Read.
And in the day of the new moon it shall be open.
So we got twice that it's open. It's open on the Shabbat days, and also once with the new moon. Right? No one is to come to the temple and do any types of transactions at all.
So it shows that there is a Shabbat day, a new moon day, and 6 working days.
And we also read, we recite it all the time
Verse 3 also.
in the book of Isaiah. And we can see from the verse how important the new moon day is along with the Shabbat. It's not a Shabbat in the sense of all work cease. The only work that's to cease is transactions with other, deals with other people, commerce. Okay? You can wash your dishes, you can iron your clothes, you can do different things around your home. But it's a recreational day also. The Most High allow us to get together and spend some family time together. You know, we don't do that. That's why we're so burnt out and destroyed as a people. We should come together, new moon day, just play music and have food, and children just running around playing, doing what they have to do. All praises to our King.
Amen.
But we can't do that now. I mean, we can, but
It's tough.
it's a work in progress. All right, read.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Shabbat to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, says Yahweh.
One new moon to the other, from one month to the other month, right? All flesh will come to worship, and also includes with that is the Shabbat. Yeah.
Let me translate that. Every beginning of a month, you come before the Lord, basically. To start the month off.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think that he deserves that? We run through the month, and then we, at the end of the week, we throw a few words at him. We do our thing, and we just head back again. We can't wait to go back to work. Yeah.
And that is because the pagan system has caused us to not to pay attention to these things by having a continual counting of days without breaking it up into months.
So one more thing. So by keeping these, so by living within the pagan system, we are breaking the Most High's commandments.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. All right, let's go to our next slide. Of course. The full moon. How can you tell when the moon is completely full? Because that's also a challenge. A lot of times when you lose your way, it looks like, is that full? You're not too sure, right? The full moon will rise in the eastern sky on the 14th night, approximately 15 to 45 minutes after the sun has set, depending on the season or the time of the year. The following day will be the second Shabbat, which is the 15th day of the month. This indicates the halfway mark of the month. It is worth noting that 2 important feasts, which is Passover, which is in the spring, and Sukkot, which is in the fall, occurs during this time of the month, or on the 15th. So when we have that slither of light, that's the new moon, you just do your count on the 15th day, boom, you know that's a Shabbat, without question. Okay? Without question. So the feast always falls upon those appointed times.
It's a fixed time.
Fixed time.
It can't be changed.
It's fixed based on the luminaries.
Yes.
Okay? Now, of course, when you're juggling between the Gentiles' calendar and the Most High's way, you're going to have problems because oil and water, they don't mix. Right? Olive oil and the Gentiles' dirty water doesn't mix. All right, let's go to our next slide. The full moon is always on the 14th night of the month. So let's look at this diagram. So over here you have the new moon day, right? Then you got the 6 working days coming across here. Then you have the Shabbat, right? That's the first Shabbat. Then you count your 6 working days again. The 14th, you see what? The full moon appears in the night. Okay? It appears in the night because it's announcing that the next day is going to be a Shabbat.
Yes.
Just like when the conjunction phase, when the moon, the light of the moon shows right over here, it announces that the next day will be the first day of the month. So you got the first day of the month right here, worship day, take the time out with the family, run around with the children, eat some corn, eat some good food, right? And then you got 6 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of work, right? Now, it's numbered this way because this is day number 1, day number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then 8 days of Shabbat. But remember, the Bible says, 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. He's just telling us that it must be a period of 6 days, but it falls after the new moon day. That's all. The first day of the month. 6 days after that, you do all your work, and then the 7th day. He never said anything about Saturday. There was no such thing as a Saturday. There was no such thing as a Sunday. He never gave names to the day, not even to the 7th day. He just said Shabbat, rest. That's it. Because if it was fixed that way, we'd have problems. It'll be clashing with his luminaries. So when he gave us that for days, years, months, hours, seasons, whatever, he wants us to pay attention to what's out there. Now imagine we go to school, we send our children to school, right? And they learn arithmetic, they learn English, they learn science. And in science, they speak about the planets and whatnot. But they don't use that to tell their time. They use math to make money. They use English to communicate, to make money. But as far as the science is concerned, they don't use that at all. That's in the garbage. Right? So we have a problem. With Israel is different. We learn those things because we want to connect all the time to the one who is the life giver of the world. Right? His appointed time. So once again, the conjunction at the end of the old month, when it's completely dark, you can't see a moon. All of a sudden, you see a little slither of light. It announces that light is telling me the child is about to be born. The next day, boom, it's the first day. Then you have, and then you rest, you don't work for someone, commercial, whatever. Then you have 6 days of work. 6 days of work. You see the quarter moon in the sky. When you see that quarter moon in the sky, it's announcing that the next day will be a Shabbat. After the Shabbat is over, you got 6 more days of work. 6 more days. So on that 6th day of work, at nighttime, you can see the full moon bright in the sky. When you see that, it's announcing that the next day is going to be a Shabbat. And then it continues on until the cycle changes again. We wait on the cycle to change, okay? So there is no woman under the face of the earth that when she's pregnant and she's going to have a child, that it falls exactly 9 months. Exactly to the right second and everything else. It doesn't happen.
But even her cycle is not the same every month.
It fluctuates, right?
Yeah.
Also the word menses, which we have the word menstruation, it means what? A month. That's what it means, menses, a month. Okay? The world uses the dark moon as the new moon or month. And so they will be off in their calculations about a day or two. Even though NASA has the technology to see the moon, they don't always put the correct information out there. The Most High did not put mankind outside of Earth to observe the times. Do you all understand that?
Yeah.
The Most High did not tell us to go outside of the earth to look and see the times. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
We're to be on this earth and to look up.
Right.
Okay? You are to observe the times from the earth. Amen? Next slide. The moon rules the night, so if the moon becomes full during the night watches, that night cannot be counted. You have to wait till the beginning of the following night to count it as a full moon. Read it again. The moon rules the night. Keep that in mind. So if the moon becomes full during the night, let's say it's not quite full, but let's say about 3 o'clock, using our modern terminology, 3 o'clock, right? Hours pass, and then all of a sudden, you see it's completely full. You can't start from there. You have to let it complete its cycle. You understand that? You can't count something in the middle of its transition. You can't start from there. All right? Is that clear?
Because what happened is that some people will say there's a full moon on the 13th night, and you can't do that. You have to wait till the 14th day, and then that night there's a full moon. That's how it works. So if the 13th night, let's say that how tonight is the 13th night, and then the moon becomes full during that night, you have to wait till the next day, the 14th day, and when the sun sets, it will appear really big in the sky, and you know it's completely full.
Or sometimes you would see with NASA, they would show you that the moon is about 10% or 89%, and the sun is about to rise. You can't use that and say it's a full moon. You have to allow it to become completely full and then count from there. Okay. So you have to wait till the beginning of the following night to count it as a full moon. When the sun sets the following evening, then it will be a full moon. It has to be full for a complete night, not part of the night. The world does not understand the order of the Most High's luminaries, so you cannot depend on them for accuracy. He never gave it to the nations to know anything, the times and the seasons. Let's go to our next slide. Last quarter moon. After the full moon, the moon will continue to rise later and later for 6 nights. Remember the first phase was earlier and earlier? Now it's later and later. It's going down, right? Which is the 21st night of the month. 21st night of the month. Then the next day will be the 3rd Shabbat, which is the 22nd day of the month. The moon can be seen during the early hours of the morning if the weather is favorable. Okay? It will continue on its journey for 6 more nights, which will be the 28th of the month. Okay? And this is why the woman's cycle goes in such a way, right? 28, right? Am I correct? I don't want to speak for the ladies now, huh?
It all depends.
Sometimes it's what?
That's right. Sometimes it's 28, 29, sometimes 30.
Right, so it's in between
That's
there.
why
Okay, about 2 days. 2 days transition.
30.
And we will find the same thing with the moon. 2 days transition. Okay? And a lot of people, let me say something. The Most High gave us instructions in the book of Exodus chapter 20, the last part. He says, when you build an altar of stone, don't build it using hewn stones. In other words, we're not making bricks. Bricks is like Egypt. Egypt used bricks. The shape is exact. The Most High uses stones that are just natural. Natural, that you build an altar. So you got Egypt, which it has to be exactly 7 days, 0.000, and everything has to be structured like that's Egypt, that's bondage. The Most High doesn't work like that. He's a mysterious, he has a little bit of fluctuation here and there. That's why we have to watch and observe and stay focused, okay? All right.
That's how nature works.
That's nature. There's no exactness to everything. Okay, where did I stop? Next slide. So here's a chart showing the cycles of the moon from number 1, number 2, see, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. You get the first quarter, brighter, waxing, it's coming down, it's coming all the way around, gets full over here. Then this is the 15th, so this will be Shabbat, right, all the way through, comes back around to the 28th. And then this is where you got that fluctuation between the times, okay? Okay, so this is just a picture that you can get an idea, a visual of how the moon goes through its cycle. Let's go to the next slide. The last Shabbat will be the following day, which is the 29th of the month. On the night of the 29th, the moon will begin to go through its conjunction stage. Conjunction stage. Conjunction stage. So, This is where it starts to, you know, like when you're driving a car, right? And you're making a turn, you're driving a straight, your power's going good, but then all of a sudden you got to make a little turn to transition, to make that turn, right? What do you have to do?
Slow down.
You got to slow down. You got to reduce your speed. You have to fix yourself up a little bit. So you're not going to come around the corner, otherwise it's going to fling you out into the bushes somewhere, right? So it slows down and it makes a turn. The speed is reduced. If you were traveling at 100 miles an hour, now it's going to take you 50 miles, let's say 100 miles an hour, now 50 miles in 2 hours. Right? So same thing, if you were going, the day was going boom, 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 now it's going to slow down to between a 1 to a 2 day period, just to transition around. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go to the next slide. How can you tell if it's a 29 or 30 day month? Let's go to the next slide. In the early morning, which is twilight, on the 29th, just as the sun is about to rise. It doesn't say for us to worship, okay? Just as the sun is about to rise, you can look toward the east and see the last slither of light on the moon. This is the moon here. You see the last slither of light on the moon if the skies are clear. So the sun is rising above the horizon. This is the horizon here. We look towards the east. Okay? You see the sun is rising. You see the moon is over here. There's a little bit of light left on the moon. Okay? So that's early in the morning, twilight, 29th, as the sun is about to rise. You can look. Sometimes Maisha will tell me, have you seen such and such? And I'm driving. I can't, honey, I can't. I'm driving. Have you seen such and such? I'm driving. I can't drive and look around for the moon, right? That might be my last moon.
Well, you saw it sometime while driving, you actually showed it to me.
Yeah. Sometimes I can't, but Okay, let's go to our next slide. How can you tell if it's the 29th or 30th day? Okay. If you do see the last light, then you will have an extra day. If you see the last light, if you do see the last light, then you will have an extra day, which is the 30th day of the month. It is considered a new moon worship day because the moon is going through its conjunction stage. So in that month, there will be a 2-day new moon worship day. And the Bible speaks of this. The 30th of the previous month and the 1st of the following month. So we will turn to Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 20 verses 5, verses 18 and verses 24. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, okay. Yeah, were you saying something?
I was just clarifying again, it's not worshiping the moon, but it's on that day we're worshiping the Most High.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are worshiping the Most High. We're not worshiping any moon. So let's get that clear. A lot of times people would say, well, you're all a bunch of lunatics. And they're doing that because of more than one reason. They can't explain it. So usually when people can't explain something or they don't understand something, they make mock.
That's right.
They criticize it, that's all.
But they have to remember it's a timepiece for meeting with Yahweh.
They see that, but then they ignore that. They're basing their times on Caesar's calendar. Now Caesar can revoke his calendar anytime he feels like. But the Most High has placed something where no Caesar can touch. Let's see what 1 Samuel chapter 20 verses 5 says.
And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the 3rd day at even.
Okay, so David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, the new month, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I might hide myself in the field unto the 3rd day at evening. Now what was happening was, David was trying to protect himself from Saul's wrath. And if he goes to the feast, there was a feast that happens every beginning of the month.
Right.
They all celebrated the king. You know, food is everywhere. People just rejoicing, breaking out the wine, having a great time before the Most High. At that time, David was marked for death. So he says, hey, I'm going to hide myself for how many days?
3 days.
2 days, and the third day he's going to come.
2 days, and the third day he was going to, I may hide myself in the field unto the third day. So it's 2 days he's going to hide himself for. Because what happened was, David was supposed to attend the feast.
Exactly.
So if the feast was for 1 day, he wouldn't have said the third day. He was going to stay away and hide himself. So when Saul was looking for David to kill him, where's David? Where's David? David was hiding himself for 2 days. And as soon as the feast day was over, because it was required that all the peoples come together. So here we got the last Shabbat, 29th day, the 30th day, the end of the month, it's conjunction. You count it as a new moon worship day. This is where the king was having a feast. So David was hidden over here on day number 1, right? New moon day. It went on for a second day, right? It also had a feast with the king. David stayed hidden. And then after this feast was over for the 2 days, then David showed himself, okay? All right? Is that clear? Okay, so let's go. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verses 18. Let's read.
Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty.
So Jonathan, his best friend, his buddy, was telling him, hey, if you're not there, somebody's going to recognize something. Okay? Let's get verses 24.
So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat down to eat meat.
Okay. So once again, we can see David was hidden for 2 days, and then he revealed himself. This should have been changed. He revealed himself on the other day. Okay? All right, is that clear? Now, when it says new moon was come, it's in a new month. Okay? In most people's minds, they're only seeing 1 day, but it's actually 2, because David is letting us know how long he's going to hide himself for. All right? And the practice is that sometimes the moon goes through that phase. You're not going to see the slit of light here until, and then,
Next day.
okay. We got it?
But if you read the whole chapter, you'll see what the second day that he came to the feast, and David was not there. And then he got angry and sent a javelin after Jonathan.
Try to kill his son.
Right.
Okay, let's read on. However, if the skies are clear and the slither was not sighted, you will only have a 29th day, month, and the new moon will be seen in the western sky 15 to 20 minutes after the sun has set. Okay? Now you have a complete cycle of the month or the moon. The phases of the moon announces the Shabbats. The phases of the moon announces the Shabbats. So you can look up in the heavens at any time of the night or day, as long as the weather cooperates to tell your days, your month, the year, as Most High says. You have no excuses. He never leaves us without witnesses. That's what the moon is, a witness. He made sure to cover all the bases, so it's left up to us to do our own research and not to depend on the heathen for the truth. Right? So once again, we can see how everything is mapped out. He's given us something that no one can touch at all. Okay? Let's continue on. Should we use the dark moon as a new moon? Should we use the dark moon as a new moon? Continue. And the answer, of course, is no. We should not use the dark moon. There are some people who say, well, when the moon is completely dark. Now remember, we're talking about light as a sign of life. When the light is losing its strength, it's showing a sign of death. Okay? The moon is going to sleep or going to death. Darkness, absence of light, is symbolic of death. So when it's dark completely, you can't say it's new. How can the dark, or the thing that is put with no light or, without absence cut off from light, how can that thing be considered new? That makes no sense. The Most High gave us his luminaries as timepieces. He said they are for signs, for seasons, days, and years. Genesis 1 and 14. He gave us something we can physically see as a sign, which directs us or points the way. When the moon loses its light, it is a sign that the moon is what? It's dying. And it's going through a stage of death, losing light, yet towards the renewal or resurrection, which is the gain of light. Right? Let's continue on.
Amen.
What sign do you see on a dark moon to determine when the month has begun? What do you see?
You can't see it.
You can't look at the sun because it's too bright, and you can't look for the moon because there's nothing to see. So what are you looking for? A sign is something that can be seen, is that correct?
Yes.
So there's nothing we can see. When the sun casts his light on the dark moon, that's when you can say it's what?
A new moon.
A new moon. You cannot say a person is alive if they're still buried, right? Nor can you say the seed of a plant is growing until it what? Sprouts. You must look for and see the physical signs as the Most High have instructed. You've got to see something. You've got to see something. Now some people will do like NASA. They will dig the soil and look below this thing, or put a camera to look below the soil to see if there are leaves popping out or something. Same way NASA will send a satellite out there with a telescope to look to see what's happening on the moon. If you are that close to the moon, it'll always look full. It'll always look a certain way. Right? Because you're up and close to that thing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be eyewitness.
That's right.
Eyewitness, not
Eyewitness.
instrument witness.
Let's go to our next slide. Now let's look at the stars for a little bit. The luminaries are the stars. Continue. Alright, the book of Job chapter 9 verses 6 to 9 gives us a little something to consider with regards to knowing the times and the seasons. Job chapter 9 verses 6 to 9. Can you read?
Which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Which commandeth the sun, and it riseth not, and sealeth up the stars.
Read on.
Which alone spreadeth out the heavens, and treadeth upon the waves of the sea. Which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, and the chambers of the south.
So the book of Job mentions three particular stars. Arcturus, Orion, Pleiades. Three important stars. It also mentions, and the chambers of the what?
The south.
The south. So that's navigation. That is navigation. Let's go to our next slide. So the book of Job actually speaks on certain topic of stars. Okay? Job chapter 38 verses 31 to verses 33. Read.
Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons?
Now look at the language that is used here. Sweet influences with Pleiades. Now when we say something is sweet, do we think of a male or female?
Female.
Female. Right? When you think about bands, breaking the bands, we think of male or female? Male. Strong. Male. Something strong. Remember, Orion is the hunter. Okay? Can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his seasons, or can't you guide Arcturus with his sons? Read.
Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven?
Do you understand the luminaries, the ordinances of the heaven? The calendar that the Most High set? Read.
Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth?
The book of Amos chapter 5 and verses 8. Let's read that now.
Seek him that maketh the seven stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into morning, and maketh the day dark with night. that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name.
Now in here, we can find the moon is interacting, because what causes the water to be poured out? The moon causes the tides to rise, to go out, come in, and go out, right? Okay, so he's pouring out. So the moon, but if you notice how in the language, the 7 stars in Orion, Pleiades and Orion, they seem, can you go back one slide? Orion and Pleiades, they're always paired together. They're always paired together. They're always paired, because in other words, they're always in the same location, same areas. All right? Let's go to our next slide. Let's continue on. Next one.
Real quick, you mentioned about the sun and the moon in this text here. And turneth the shadow of death, which is the night, into morning, which is the sun coming out. And maketh the day dark with night. And then we talk about the moon after that.
That's right. So you got all 3 right here. Okay, continue on. So let's look at Arcturus. Arcturus, okay? Can you read for me?
Okay, from the Hebrew, H05906, and it says Arcturus, a constellation. The Great Bear, Ursa Major, Arcturus.
So it's a constellation. That means it's a group of what? Stars. It's a group of stars, right? A group of stars forming a recognizable pattern that is traditionally named after its apparent form. The apparent form is like a what?
It looks like a bear.
Like a bear. A she-bear. Okay?
The second definition from the root word of 05789, it says means to assemble yourselves, to lend aid or come to help, hasten.
Okay. To assemble yourselves as connection with congregation. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay. The history of Arcturus, the Great Bear. The Great Bear, or Ursa Major, contains the group of stars known as the Big Dipper. The handle of the Big Dipper is the Great Bear's tail, right over here. And the Dipper's cup is the bear's flank. The bear's flank, in other words, the backside, the bear, right? Alright, the Big Dipper is not a constellation itself, but an asterism, or a distinctive group of stars. Now let's move on to our next slide. Depending on the season of the year, the Big Dipper can be found high in the northern sky or low in the northern sky. High or low, depending on the season, right? In the spring and summer evenings, the Big Dipper shines highest in the sky. In the autumn and winter evenings, the Big Dipper is closest to the horizon. Okay? So it's changing accordingly. Spring, summer, fall, winter, and so forth.
That's another way you can tell when the season's changing.
Right, right. So so this is how the Most High allows us to really know the times and also the seasons. We look at that, because back in those days, after a hard day's work, we sit in our tents and we look up and we can see this whole array of stars shooting across, different things happening, and over every night as a child to an old man, you see this. You pick up on things. You start to see the patterns, and you're able to teach your children, and you're able to follow and know directions and whatnot. But our day and time, we have GPS, and we're not able to do that anymore. You go out there, you tell someone this and that and the other, you get lost. And then on top of that, we have the spraying of the skies. So, what do? Yes?
Let's say, when I was little, my grandmother told me, when we used to lay on the back of her car and look at the stars, and she would point everything out. And she would say, just think of that as a big chalkboard or a blackboard, and you can basically read, the stars that way, as far as seasons and different times of the year. So that's how you think of it, like a child looking at a blackboard.
Oh, okay. That's right. All right. Yes, Alan.
When I was a young child, had understanding. No TV, no radio, nothing. I could look at the moon, you could look at the stars. And the fishermen, when they go fishing, the travelers, by night or whatever, they know exactly how the things goes. And those that are planting, they plant also by the moon and so on.
Right.
They tell you what day to plant, 3 days or 3 days before new moon, full moon, or 3 days after full moon. You plant. Something like that. But I miss out all these things.
So now we use the Farmer's Almanac.
Yeah.
And that was the big screen TV back then.
That's great.
Yeah, the flat screen, yeah.
HD.
Oh, yeah.
High definition. You got no problem. Everyone could afford one.
And nobody could spray the skies because down there, this thing was not invented yet.
Right, right. Orion, or Casil, the hunter. Casil, constellation, Orion, the hunter. So once again, we can see Orion in the form of a hunter. The way that the stars connect, the way they extend the arm, it looks like a hunter. And it's been this way for thousands of years, that people have recognized this in all different cultures. And this is why you see an astronomer from Babylon can communicate with an astronomer from another place, because they all see the same things in the sky, right? They all can communicate on that level. All
That's what
right?
the ancient people used in the,
Speak
in the
into
East.
the mic.
I mean, the people of the East, okay, or nomads or whatever, people who travel in, by tents, they live in tents or whatever. And that's what they had to study, they know it, so.
All right, let's go to our next slide. The hunter again. The constellation Orion contains 2 of the 10 brightest stars in the sky. Rigel, Beta Orionis, and Betelgeuse.
Alpha or
Alpha Orionis. It is the most recognizable in the winter and spring skies in both the northern and southern hemispheres. You locate the Orion by looking toward the northwestern sky and locating 3 bright stars close together in an almost straight line right here. So you got the Rigel over here, Betelgeuse over here, and then you got this belt right across. This is why it's called Orion's belt. Is that correct?
The
yes.
whole thing is
okay.
Orion, that portion is Orion. The whole thing is called Orion.
The holding is Orion. This is the Orion's belt.
Right.
Right. So there you go. And he's getting ready to shoot his arrow. Okay?
He's pointing the way to Pleiades.
Right.
The north
All
side.
right. Let's go to our next slide. These 3 stars represent Orion's belt. The 2 bright stars on the north are his shoulders, and the two to the south are his feet. Okay? Orion rises in the east and sets in the west. Imagine that. He rises in the east and he also sets in the west. Everything begins on the east side and travels over to the west. Okay? Hebrew is a language that goes from this side
East to west.
to the west. Greek is from this side to that side. Always against nature for some reason.
Yeah.
Orion's belt, the only 3 bright stars that form a short straight line in the whole night sky, rise very close to due east and set very close to due west. Okay? All right, let's move on. Pleiades, or Kimma, the 7 stars called the 7 sisters. 7 sisters. All right? This is what Job talked about.
Yeah.
Amos.
Amos chapter 8.
Right. Kumas, from the unused root meaning to store away, or tablets. Ornaments, golden ornament. Maybe armlets of gold, exact meaning not known. Tablets. Okay? So this is a breakdown of the stars, Atlas, and most of these are like Greek names and stuff, bunch of different Greek, Electra, Greek, Maya, all Greek names and stuff. But
But the Bible calls
the,
it
Bi-
seven stars.
but the Bible calls it 7 stars. So we're not using the Greek, even though that's what we use in modern society, but the Bible says 7 stars, okay? Let's continue on. Read for me.
The Pleiades star cluster, also known excuse me, as the Seven Sisters, or M45, is visible from virtually every place that humanity inhabits Earth. It can be seen from as far north as the North Pole and further south than the southernmost tip of South America. It looks like a tiny misty dipper of stars. One of the nearest star cluster to our Earth, Pleiades, is a prominent site in the northern hemisphere in winter and in the southern hemisphere in summer. It passes through the sky from November through April, shining from dusk until dawn, and announces the opening of the navigation season.
So we have another thing that helps to announce when it's time that we can travel. Okay? You look at the times from November through April. November through April, shining from dusk until dawn, and announces the opening of the navigation season. So when does the navigation season begin?
In the spring.
In the spring.
Yeah.
Why? Because usually during the winter time, the seas are too rough for travel. So when we see this appears, we know it's safe enough that we can travel. The water is not as frigid. You know, everything is, you know, was once rested, now it's time to go back out and to live. Okay? So the Most High has everything in order. But now we got ships that are icebreakers and can travel in the deep cold and can, you know, defy nature. Read on.
You can locate Pleiades by using the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Draw a line through from left to right, and you come to a V-shaped pattern of stars with a bright star in its midst. The V-shaped pattern is the face of Taurus, the bull. The bright star in the V, called Aldebaran, depicts the bull's eye. A bit past Aldebaran, you'll see the Pleiades cluster, which marks the bull's shoulder.
All right, let's go to our next slide. A lot of science, huh? Let's continue on. Note, why would the Most High mention these stars if they were just put there for beauty? And that's important. Why would he just put those things there just for style, fashion? No, it's serving more than one reason, right? They all have a purpose, as he said in Genesis 1:14. They are our time that the Most High has so graciously given to the house of Israel to worship on his appointed times. The heavens surely declares the glory of Yah. Jeremiah 31, verses 35 to verses 37. And the Most High has given us some script to show how Israel is connected to the luminaries. I had did a class some time ago, which I will have to repeat it again. It's called "It Is Written in the Stars." And It Is Written in the Stars is a class that really shows the connection between everything, the Shabbats and us. You know, we can't be separated one from the other. And this will give us a little glimpse of that too. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, all 3 of those constellations you just showed, they're all 3 of them can be seen in the northern sky. I just wanted to point that out because as long as you know where north is, you'll always know to the back of you is south. And then, as long as you always have a true north.
Right.
That's why I thought it was amazing because he just mentioned northern, for some reason, in that scripture, in that passage, only northern constellations, that all of them can be seen in the north. Right. So you'll always have your home base and you'll know, so you'll never be lost, basically, I guess.
Right. Let's get Jeremiah 31:35. Go ahead and read.
Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night.
So we got all 3, the sun, the moon, and also the stars, right? Continue.
Which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar.
That's the tides. Water goes up, water comes down, it divides, right? Go ahead.
The Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever.
Check this out. prophecy by the church people say that the sun, the moon will be destroyed when the Most High, when Yeshua returns. He's going to rapture everyone up. He's going to destroy the sun, the moon, all the planets, the earth, everything will be blown up, basically, right? But yet the prophets declare that he's going to regather the tribes of Israel. So if the sun is connected, the moon and the stars is connected to Israel, and he's going to regather Israel. If he blows up the sun, moon, and stars and so forth, then there's no Israel. In other words, Israel is connected to the luminaries regardless of the situation. It's just the way he said things to be. Now the teachers teach that, of course, those things will be destroyed. So if those things are destroyed, then obviously there will be no Israel. So the Bible does not contradict itself. It is the teachers. They're the ones that are contradicting the scripture. Read verses 36 again.
If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord,
That's the sun, moon, and stars. Read.
then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever.
So what he's saying is that as long as you go outside and you can see the sun, the moon, and the stars, as a matter of fact, without those things there will be no earth.
Exactly.
Know that we are still a people unto him. Can't change that.
Amen.
No label of Christianity will make a difference. Can't change that. No nationality in terms of I'm an American, I'm a British citizen, or a French citizen. That has nothing to do with us. Because those nations will be destroyed. But Israel will continue on. Okay?
You could see how important, and God specifically speaking about Israel all through the scriptures. Nothing concerning the whole world. Only Israel. The Bible was written for Israel. The precepts, the statutes, the commandments, everything Israel. Nothing
Right.
for Gentiles or the whole world.
Yeah, the earth, everything was made from the very beginning for his bride. Okay? Was that it?
37.
37? Okay.
Thus saith the Lord, if heaven can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith the Lord.
Now, scientists are trying to achieve that. They say they have different means and ways of measurement. They can tell you by light years how far everything is and how many stars. That's why they're always looking. And every time they see a new star, it's like, new star, a new universe, a new constellation. It's just making the Bible more, grounded. That if you can measure all these things, and if you can search out the foundations of the earth beneath, then Israel is going to stop from being, because I have put the challenge so high, the bar so high, that you have to try to defeat that, but you're not able to. You're not able to break that challenge.
They're still digging.
They're still digging. Even now, they're still discovering new species of fish coming up from the deep. Because they don't have the device to go that deep. As soon as they send a submarine, even an unmanned submarine, it crushes like a soda can. It cannot deal with the pressure. Right? They talk about, well, we're going to send this probe to go search the universe. And the probe just traveling or whatever. That's what they say. But that's probably in Nevada.
As far as they go.
Oh yeah.
Right. The rover traveling through Nevada, taking pictures of the red soil over there or something. Let's go to the next
Keep
slide.
deceiving you.
Yeah. They don't want to face the fact that there's the Most High and there's a plan and whatnot.
The big question is, they claim they've been to the moon. How come they haven't had any trips since then?
Everybody's trying to go to the moon, but they haven't done so yet. Let's go to our next slide. So now we have a few references for the bear. I'm sure it'll take a long time for you to write all this stuff down, but you can freeze pause the video later on and get that information. Okay? But the bear, Orion, and Pleiades. Let's go to the next slide. The new year. How can you tell when Yahweh's new year has begun? I think that's the question a lot of people are trying to figure out. Okay, so we know about the month. Okay, we know about the day. But what about the new year? Because some say the equinox, some say the barley, some say this, some say that. Well, let's see what, because remember, it is all three things the Most High says that He gave for us, right? You can't use the sun alone, you're going to be wrong. You can't use the moon alone, you're going to go off. You can't use the stars by itself, you're going to go off. They have to be a balance. All three have to work together. So let's look at that. So this is a picture of the earth. This is what people say, equinox, right? Many have erred in this department. Some groups use the spring equinox fixed by men, then count the following day as the first day of the year. So when they see equal day, equal light, it says, okay, the next day is the first day of the year. So if the equinox starts on Wednesday, for them, I guess the Thursday is the first day of the year. So they have a short week. Because Saturday is the seventh day. Thursday, day number 1. Friday, day number 2. And what else? Saturday, 7, 3 days. And Sunday begins the day, so they got a 3-day week. See? They start a new week. So this is kind of some of the foolishness that's out there, right? And then it will fall like in the middle of a month or something like that. So it's not accurate. Okay? They assume that when the sun goes into the spring house, and some use the first dark moon after the spring equinox, still set by man. Let's go to the next slide. The Most High makes it clear that all three luminaries, sun, moon, and stars, are for what? Signs. In my research, I've found all but one individual who includes the stars, and indeed he was correct. I verified the data and realized that we are not included all the stars at all. The stars play a huge part in keeping the time accurately. Okay, so let's go to our next slide. Here are a few scripture references. David wrote in Psalms 136 verses 7 to 9. Can you read?
To him that made great lights, for his mercy endureth forever. The sun to rule by day, for his mercy endureth forever. The moon and stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever.
Once again, the sun ruling, the moon is involved in the whole process, and everything we on the earth looking at, everything that's around us to determine the times. Continue on. Again, Amos 5 also says, go ahead.
Seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into morning, or the sun, and maketh the day dark with night, or the moon, that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name.
So once again, the references are right there before us, that all three has to be worked together. And that says, seek him, okay? The Lord is his name. We're seeking him. To seek him is appointed times and convocation. Everything has to be lined up accordingly.
His signature right there.
That's right. Let's continue on. Job chapter 38 verses 31 again, 33. We don't have to read all of it, but it mentions the same Pleiades, the 7 stars, and the different guides, okay? Let's go to the next slide. No, all these verses reveal sun, moon, and stars working together as a timepiece, right? As stated in Genesis 1:14. All of these names are the names of the stars that play a great role in keeping track of days, months, and years. Let's continue on. Psalms 65 verses 9 to verses 12. Let's read that. Psalm 65, 9 to 12.
Thou visitest the earth, and watereth it. Thou greatly enrich it with the river of God, which is full of water. Thou preparest them corn, when thou hast so provided for it.
And this happens when? In the
Springtime.
When the rain comes down, gives the earth the water that is needed, and it brings forth the corn, right? Read on.
Thou waterest the ridges thereof abundantly. Thou settlest the furrows thereof. Thou makest it soft with showers. Thou blessest the springing thereof. Thou crownest the year with thy goodness, and thy path drop fatness.
Mhm.
They drop upon the pastures of the wilderness, and the little hills rejoice on every side.
So something is crowning the year. Let's keep that in mind. And we can see all these things occurring in the springtime. Now, a lot of times with the equinox thing, you still have snow showers and different things, so you really can't do anything when you see that, right? Let's continue on. How does the Most High crowns the year? Yahweh's new year starts in the spring, when all things begin to what? Bloom again.
Yeah.
The trees put forth their buds that look like a crown or a garland. So during that time, Pleiades, known to the pagans as the sister stars, but to the Most High as the seven stars of Pleiades, will be seen in the western sky. And the new moon will be sitting right beneath it as a bowl. So you got the stars and you got the moon lining up with each other, right? And also you have the sun interacting, because without the sun, you're not going to have a new moon.
Yeah.
And also the trees of blossoming.
The
Everything
blossoms,
is blossoming.
right.
So you
So-
gotta tie everything together.
Right, so nature, the flowers coming forth, you got, in other words, everything is lining up. It's not just an equinox.
Right.
It's equal day, equal night, okay? It's more than that. He didn't say wait until the night and the day becomes balanced for the first day of the year. He didn't say that, okay? Because then you don't have, where's the stars in all of this? The star is just an ornament, it's just, you know, twinkle, twinkle, little star. Let's go to our next slide. So here's a picture. Now this is during this particular time, and this just gives us a phase right over here. You can see the moon here, right, and Venus or the planet over here. But check this out, right over here. See Pleiades here? And you have the moon sitting below it as a bowl. All these other times is not that way. This one particular time, this is what I wanted us to take a look at. This one particular time, it lines up. Okay? It lines up. And it always falls in, you know, in perfect order.
That would be considered the first.
That would be the sign. Yeah.
So when you see that in the night,
That's spring.
right, you know spring has begun, so the next day will be day number 1 of the first month of the year.
It's the new moon.
Yep. Because this is what? What moon is this?
The new moon.
That's the new moon.
That's the new moon. So the new moon declares the beginning of the month, right?
Right.
So it's not like this. Let's say, for example, that you have Pleiades and the moon lined up, but this is not a new moon. We have a problem.
That's the problem. It doesn't do that except in the spring.
Only in the spring that this.
Yes.
Only in the spring, right?
Yes.
Only in the spring, those Pleiades and the moon lines up. And when that
The
happens,
fruits in a bowl.
when it fruits the bowl, that's a good.
That's true.
That's a
Right.
good point, too.
Exactly.
When
Because-
that shows the seven sisters and the birth, the child, you know, coming out, the womb,
Exactly.
it's all lined up together.
And it just so happened that it's 7 stars. That means the year has come to its revolution. You know, that's
Right.
a complete cycle. And then it starts again.
So you're not going to find this afterwards, day number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. But it happens with the new moon, that little slither, light as a bowl, and also the stars.
Right.
Once you see that, you recognize that, do an experiment. It's soon to come,
Right.
right?
It's soon to come. And then another thing is, like, the way it sits like a bowl, if you look at the next day, it will move a little bit this way. It wouldn't be like a bowl. It will move up, so you know that's not the beginning.
Right,
It never leaves you confused. You just have to look at it and how it's lined up.
right. So we
It's
use
perfect.
this picture as an example. This is back, I guess it's 2010, just as an example. Anyway, so just to repeat again, wherever you are, you can see the stars, okay? So we will know when is the year, when it begins, all right? Okay, do you think it is a mere coincidence that it just happens to be a 7-star cluster? No. It was divinely designed by Yahweh to tell time. These two luminaries must be together in the same location at the same time in the night sky to mark the beginning of the Most High's new year. Right? Same location, together at the same time in the night and in the day to mark the beginning of the Most High's New Year. Because sometimes we use the computer and we look at NASA and we middle of the day, 3 o'clock or whatever, 2 o'clock, whatever. You just look at stuff on your computer and say, oh, I see the, no problem. Put that in the trash. Go outside and do your homework and you will see for yourself. Don't let the nations tell you. They can jiggle the thing however they want to do it. Okay? Pleiades is located in the house of Taurus and can be seen brighter during the spring season. As we have established previously, you must look for the signs. It is the only way to accurately tell our days, months, and years to meet the Most High at His appointed times. Let's move on. Note, the sun goes through 12 houses every month to complete the yearly cycle. These houses, also known as the tabernacles of the sun, when you read Psalms 19, you get that understanding, are clusters of stars that the sun aligns itself with. Though He, which is the sun, is the head, He needs the rest of the body or members to do the job on point. So, with the help of the minute hand, the moon, and the second hand, the stars, He is able to keep time correctly. So you got all three. Sun, moon, and the stars. Right? Right there on the screen. Let's move on to our next slide. This is just a quick snapshot because this is a study by itself. We know about the zodiac thing, that's the Greek form of it, but the Most High, this is just everyone around the world can identify with the seasons, right, accordingly, the houses of the sun. But this is just the names, these are just the names that was utilized for the Greeks and the Romans. And it's still with us today, so we just use these names to make the point.
12 tribes, right?
But
These are the 12 tribes of Israel.
exactly. See, He specifically chose 12 tribes of Israel. Because it just fits his pocket, his style, his way of doing things, right? He didn't choose 8 tribes of Israel or whatever. He chose 12. And it's not by a happenstance or coincidence that we have 12 phases, or 12 houses, okay? All right, so read for me.
Nazareth, apparently from H0155144, in the sense of distinction, says the 12 signs of the zodiac and their 36 associated constellations. And it says from H0514, Nazar means separate, consecrate, to dedicate, again, to dedicate oneself, devote oneself, to keep sacredly separate. Nazarite, or to live as a Nazarite.
Note, these are the pagan names given to the 12 houses of the sun. However, the book of Genesis 49 speaks about the 12 tribes.
The 12 tribes.
In the different character form.
Right.
All right?
For example, it says Zebulun is the haven of, haven of the sea. Right. Naphtali is the day hang, let loose, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so any comments?
Well, Sister Erica has a question. So with the 2 new moon day, do you start your 7-day count on the first new moon or the second?
After the second.
Yes, on the second.
The second.
Because the first one is the conjunction stage, but it's just considered to be a day until the new one shows up.
Just look at it as an extra time for Israel to chill out. Right? That's all it is. Extra chill day. Extra chill day. So you got the Most High give, every once in a while He throws a little extra special in there. We have a little extra to chill out. That's why Saul was kicking back with the big feast and stuff, and he can go out, all out a little bit more, right? But then after that, it's back to work. It's back to work. All right?
Yahweh's feast days usually last for 7 days.
Yes, sister, what you're saying?
No, I said that extra day sounds good.
Sister, I could use more than an extra day right now.
I have a lot of questions, but I'm just gonna go study. I wouldn't ask questions if the lesson hadn't been done so well. So y'all be great. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, sis. You're welcome. But a lot of this stuff will be repeated anyway as we go through. We have to do these things to help our people to understand We just went over this like textbook style, just boom, boom, boom. But as we go into the scriptures, we'll see how everything really connects, right? Like for example, Sirach says, why is one day more, excels more than the other.
Right.
And when you read the text with the understanding, it tells us why that is.
Right.
There's no way we can distinguish one day from the next by looking at the sun, because first of all, the sun doesn't show any fluctuations that has a pattern to it that we can mark and say, okay, I'm going to follow it this way. We can't do it like that. It just doesn't work. The moon is there, like daddy is the rough one with the belt, hot fire. Mommy's the one in the middle, and she absorbs that light and she breaks it down for the children, and we're able to really pick up certain things. And so the moon shows the reflection of the sun, or the light of the sun that we can see. It's our filter, allows us to see. When we are able to see that, then we can know the days and weeks and so forth.
It's not a coincidence that the woman happened to be the one with the cycle. You see? So if you have to look at it, like in the book of Revelation, it says, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars.
12 stars.
Okay? This is the house of Israel. So you can say that how Yeshua represents that light, the light of the world, which is the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gives his laws or ordinances to Israel, which is the woman. Okay? And out of Israel come 12 tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The 12 tribes were made from the house of Israel. So if you think about what Jacob said when Joseph had the dream, shall your father, your mother, and your 11 brothers bow down to you? Mm-hmm. So they're all connected. It's just simple. If you really just spend time to think about it and study the scriptures, you will see how it works.
That's right. So we give all praises to our King. Much to learn, Israel and diaspora. Weeding out all the weeds, all the nonsense. It's going to take a little time, but it's there. Just don't take my word for it. Just go verify for yourself. And we have coming up the opportunity to verify Pleiades and the new moon lining up with each other. Right? So we have a chance to check that out.
Another thing that you have to think about too is on some of the calendar, like the Farmer's Almanac, they will tell you the moon is in so-and-so house. But when you actually look up in the heavens, it's actually not. So they're not giving you the correct thing.
That's a good point.
Okay? So...
Hold on. Let's digest that a little bit. What she's saying, when we read, there's a reason why the Most High says for us to look, to watch. Okay? When we do that, we are okay. But when we look to the books that the people put out, it's going to be a little off.
Right.
Because we're reading the books, but we're not observing what the Most High put out. And there's a little clash. Okay?
Right. And that is because they use a dark moon as a new moon. They don't use the first sliver of light as a new moon. You see, so when you look up, it's not what they're saying.
Right.
Okay? Now, for the year to start, because it's the month of the Passover, that moon that you see that sits like a bowl, it will be in the house of the sheep or the ram. That's not a coincidence, brothers and sisters. That's just God design.
Right. That's in the spring.
In the spring.
It's in the house of the sheep, right? The ram.
That's right, the ram.
Okay, not in the house of the goat.
No.
Not in the house of the bull.
No, not even the house of the bull, nothing. It's just in the house of the ram, the moon will be there.
And that happens in the end of the year?
It happens at the beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year. Okay.
Right.
So a lot of things are there for us to see.
Right. So you count 14 days from that time and there'll be the Passover.
All right. And with that, we're going to stop right there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sis.
I don't want to hear on report, but I don't understand the terminology dark moon.
Oh, the terminology dark moon means when the moon has no light on it at all. In other words, it's the ending phase of the moon.
That's in the video.
Okay, it's the ending phase of the moon. So when the slither of light, that little tiny amount of light hits the moon, that is the new moon. That's the sign of the new moon, yes.
What's the difference?
Take that
Right,
out.
okay, I just wasn't understanding the terminology, you saying that the scientists, they use the dark moon, so that's what I wasn't understanding.
Yeah, some people uses the dark, like the moon is completely black, there's no light on it, and they will say that is the new moon, and that's incorrect. It's not considered new if there's no light on it. There must be some light hitting that moon to reflect and to show there's something new being born. Something is beginning. Something is happening. Yes. So when a lot of times people uses the moon completely dark, there's no light on it, and they're saying that's the new moon. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. There must be some light on it. It's a sign, exactly. So as a sign, you can see light, and you know we're in the direction of more light. Okay? So, the dark moon is just simply a moon without light on it. It's dead.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Was the class clear enough that we could understand, or was there some other stuff that I may have to come back over? Brothers on the conference.
Pretty clear, sir.
Pretty clear? Okay, good. Okay, good. Because sometimes when we understand things already, we just go through it, but we got to put ourselves in the position of others who are learning it for the first time. All right, and it'll get better. It'll get better. There's lots of things to learn. As a matter of fact, I have all types of sources, books, information from the scholars who can vouch to show that how the ancients did it, and how these artificial systems that we have, the calendar, international date line, all these different things, is just designed for money. It's just designed to regulate the flow of money and taxations and so forth. It has nothing to do with the Most High's appointed times, because we're using a system that was designed for commerce and trying to keep the Most High's holy or rest days. It doesn't work. Two different systems,
Right.
clashing all the time.
He doesn't mix the holy with the profane.
That's right.